At night, in the high desert, sound travels differently. A dog barks once, then stops. The wind pushes through juniper like a warning, and somewhere beyond the headlights, something feels off. In pop culture, there's a word people love to throw around for that feeling: skinwalker. It's become a Halloween costume, a creepypasta keyword, a top 10 thumbnail. But in Diné, often called Navajo, communities, the reality behind that word is not entertainment. It's tied to fear, community boundaries, and beliefs that many people are reluctant to discuss with outsiders at all. Wikipedia, Skinwalker. So tonight, we're doing something different. Not a monster hunt, not a cheap true story compilation, but the terrifying truth about why these legends exist and what happens when a living tradition gets turned into content. Because the scariest part of this story may not be a creature in the dark, it may be what history did in broad daylight. To understand the Skinwalker legend, we start with a simple truth. Stories don't float in empty space. They live in language, land, and community rules. What you say, when you say it, and who has the right to carry it. The Diné homeland, often called Dinata, is more than geography. It's identity, origin teachings, and survival knowledge passed through generations. NMI, returning home. And language isn't just translation, it's worldview. The Navajo Nation's Office of the President and Vice President describes Diné Bizad as something carried through stories, pronunciation, rhythm, meant to be learned from fluent speakers and rooted in lived Diné experience. Navajo Nation OPVP, Diné Bizad. So when outsiders reduce a complex belief into one spooky word, something breaks: context, safety, and respect. Now, the tragedy. The part that turns this from legend into something heavier. In the 1860s, U.S. policy in the Southwest hardened into removal, confinement, and assimilation. Diné people were forced into what they call Hwéeldi, Fort Sumner, Bosque Redondo, a place of suffering. Different sources give different numbers and distances, because this wasn't one neat march for one camera angle. It was multiple forced marches and thousands of lives disrupted. One account describes 8,000 rounded up and forced to walk more than 300 miles. Smithsonian. Another describes over 50 groups forced to walk more than 350 miles, with horrific deaths on the route and at the reservation. NM Historic Sites, Bosque Redondo History. This is the personal tragedy element, because fear changes under pressure. Hunger changes it. Prison camp conditions change it. And when a community is trapped in suffering, stories about danger, human danger, don't disappear, they sharpen. So, what is the thing people call a skinwalker? One commonly cited Navajo term is naaldlooshii, often glossed as by means of it, it goes on all fours. Wikipedia, Skinwalker. But here's the line that matters. Even public summaries acknowledge these beliefs are rarely discussed with outsiders, in part due to taboo and lack of cultural context. Wikipedia, Skinwalker. And Diné scholars and cultural voices have pointed out an ethical boundary. Outsiders frequently want the real details, the rules, the how-tos. But that is exactly what shouldn't be extracted and reposted. As Dr. Adrian Keene describes through ethnographic refusal, some knowledge isn't owed to outsiders. That's how our cultures survive. Native appropriations. So in this film, we will not sensationalize. We will treat this as what it is often described as: a harmful form of witchcraft, an inversion of community values, spoken about with caution. Wikipedia, Skinwalker. If you want a true David versus Goliath story here, it isn't humans versus monsters. It's a community versus a system. At Bosque Redondo, Thousands were confined, Diné and Mescalero Apache, Nde, alike, under a program designed to force assimilation. NM Historic cites Bosque Redondo history. The site's own historical framing is blunt. It describes an attempt to control indigenous peoples and teach them to farm and learn the ways of the white man, explicitly naming assimilation and cultural destruction. NM Historic cites Bosque Redondo history. And the suffering wasn't abstract. The water, disease, crop failure, accounts describe it as a prison camp by effect, if not always by name, Smithsonian. In moments like that, stories about danger become more than fear. They become community defense, warnings about betrayal, about harm from within and without, about what happens when trust collapses. Fast forward to modern America, where the internet rewards the scariest headline.
Skinwalker sightings, Skinwalker rules, Skinwalker ranch. The legend is stripped of tribe-specific context and blended into a generic Native American myth, as if hundreds of distinct nations share one single story. Dr. Keene calls out exactly that harmful flattening. There is no such thing as one Native American anything. And then comes the worst part, the barrage of questions aimed at Native people, pressuring them to explain, translate, confirm, entertain. That's not curiosity, that's extraction. So if you're watching this in the US, here's the uncomfortable mirror. The monster story can become a pipeline for disrespect, without the creator ever intending harm. In 1868, after years of suffering, Diné leaders negotiated for the right to return. The Treaty of 1868 is remembered as creating a sovereign Navajo nation. New Mexico culture, Bosque Redondo Memorial. And now, listen to this. A leader named Barboncito spoke words that still land today, not as a quote for content, but as a human promise tied to homeland. After we get back to our country, it will brighten up again, and Navajos will be as happy as the land. Black clouds will rise, and there will be plenty of rain. Corn will grow in abundance, and everything will look happy. Barboncito, quoted in John L. Kessel, WHQ 1981, NMAI PDF. That's the turning point, because it reframes everything. The heart of this story is not horror, it's return, it's survival, it's a people insisting they belong to their land, and that their land belongs with them.
So what do we do with the Skinwalker legend today? We stop treating it like a universal campfire toy. We acknowledge what public sources already say. These beliefs are often not shared with outsiders, and the reluctance exists for reasons: taboo, context, and cultural survival. Wikipedia, Skinwalker. We accept a boundary that many viewers won't like. You may not get the full lore, the true rules, the proof, and that's okay. As Dr. Keene explains, some things don't need or should be discussed by outsiders at all. Native appropriations. If that frustrates you, good. Sit with it. That friction is part of learning respect. When content goes viral, it leaves a footprint. It can drag real nations into fake narratives, especially when everything gets lumped into one Native American category, native appropriations. It can also turn living beliefs into gotcha trivia. Say the word and it appears. Do this to protect yourself. Here's how they become one. We're not doing that here, because that kind of content encourages boundary crossing and stereotypes. And if you're an American viewer who cares about justice, this is a patriotic value too. Respecting sovereign nations, respecting living cultures, telling U.S. history honestly, even when it's painful. NM Historic Sites, Bosque Redondo History. If you came here for a monster, I won't insult you. Fear is human. But if you stay for the truth, here it is. Sometimes the thing in the dark is a shadow cast by history, by removal, confinement, and the ongoing pressure placed on Native communities to explain themselves on demand. Smithsonian. And sometimes the most respectful thing we can do is not to take more, not more details, not more spectacle, but to give attention back to what matters: land, language, sovereignty, survival. Navajo Nation OPVP, Diné Bizad. If you want more documentaries that treat Native histories with respect, subscribe. If you learned something, share this with someone who thinks Skinwalker is just a meme. And in the comments, don't post encounter stories. Instead, answer this: what does respect look like when a culture sets a boundary? Because in the end, the lesson isn't about what we're allowed to know. It's about who we choose to be.